Anyway, Trump is backing away from some of the crackdowns apparently because industry leaders went to him and were like, what the fuck are you doing? You're actually impacting our bottom line. No shit.
On immigration, what made you change your mind about targeting in California farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business?
Well, we're not targeting. In fact, if you look today, I put out a statement today about farmers. Our farmers are being hurt badly by, you know, they have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be, you know, great. And we're going to have to do something about that.
Not exactly sure what this will look like. Not exactly sure what kind of scale backs will take place. But this is part of the reason why I said, don't say taco here, guys. Come on. This is part of the reason why I said mass deportation, the way that these guys envisioned it, will not happen because it harms the bottom line far too much. From their perspective, from their calculation, it's good to shit on migrants because business owners rely on migrants being a permanent underclass, constantly in legal limbo, not getting their citizenship, so they can't actually actively fight for better wages and better workplace protections. They can be discarded and disposed of when companies no longer, or when companies feel like they want too much, like back pay, or they complain too much about sexual harassment and sexual violence that takes place in the assembly line. And they can just discard of them by calling ICE on themselves, only to turn around and bring in a fresh crop of undocumented migrants. And this means that ultimately the Trump administration is not white supremacist enough to fully go through with full purges of all undocumented migrants in the country. Didn't you say this wasn't the case the other stream? No. I have maintained the position that full tilt mass deportation is concentration camps, and it would absolutely destroy the economy. And therefore, they won't go through with this. They won't go through with the full agenda. They don't even have the logistics to go through with it. They don't have enough people to go through with it. Yes, Aviva Chomsky talks about this in her book, Undocumented: How Immigration Became Illegal. I think it's a really, really important work, and I highly recommend you guys all read it if you have the opportunity. Aviva Chomsky is one of Noam Chomsky's children, for those of you who don't know, but that is exactly what I'm talking about. Immigration, like flows of migration, will always happen due to the instability that we cause in the global south and due to climate change. And therefore, we will always have a hyper exploited underclass, a permanent underclass of laborers, but they can only remain a permanent underclass of laborers, which also has the capacity to depress wages for the documented workforce as well, because there's constantly people that will do the same job, if not better, work longer hours for pennies on the dollar, as opposed to the documented American laborer, that they can only maintain this structure as long as there is reactionary sentiment, dehumanization, and no pathway to citizenship for these people. Because if they were to become full-blown citizens, then they would be able to better advocate for their own needs, their desires. They would have better workplace protections. They would not have to constantly worry about being ripped away from their family and loved ones. That's why I always say the real solution to this problem is to expedite and offer conditional amnesty to every single migrant in this country, which is an overwhelmingly popular alternative to mass deportation. If you actually want to improve the wages and living standards of American workers, that is what you're supposed to do. Because the alternative is not real. It's not a real alternative at all. The notion that you are going to set up concentration camps and pack every single migrant into these concentration camps. Did you say conditional amnesty? Yes, I say conditional amnesty, as in like work through people's backgrounds. Like obviously offering a background check in the process of amnesty is the appropriate thing to do. And the reason why I say that is because, and this doesn't mean that there's going to be a tremendous number of there aren't a tremendous number of criminals in the population of undocumented migrants.
We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back because they don't have maybe what they're supposed to have, maybe not. And you know what's going to happen and what is happening? They get rid of some of the people because, you know, you go into a farm and you look and people don't, they've been there for 20, 25 years and they've worked great and the owner of the farm loves them and everything else. And then you're supposed...
Bro, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the Republicans going, abortion is murder. And then once Roe v. Wade is overturned, turning around and being like, okay, well, maybe murder is fine in cases of incest or in cases of rape or when there's severe harm to the carrier's life, and basically winding their way back down to the position that already existed with abortion protections. Obviously, it's not the same for every state, and it's still awful for many red states, but like, this is exactly the same thing that's happening. It's like, oh, we're doing mass deportation. We are going to go after every single migrant. We're going to do concentration camps. It's going to be awesome. Only to turn around and be like, okay, I guess not all of the people that we're deporting are criminals because there aren't that many undeported criminals that are undocumented migrants to begin with, because obviously when someone does a crime on U.S. soil, they get prosecuted. The idea that the Biden administration was simply letting undocumented migrants go after doing heinous crimes is so psychotic. It was never real. And the Democrats couldn't even defend that on principle for some weird reason. They're just unwinding back to the previous position, but tens of thousands of lives are harmed along the way because these dipshits treat human beings like numbers. Like, it's just simply a pawn for a political message that you want to defend.
Supposed to throw them out, and you know what happens? They end up hiring the people, the criminals that have come in, the murderers from prisons and everything else. So we're going to have an order on that pretty soon, I think. We can't do that to our farmers, and leisure too, hotels. We're going to have to use a lot of common sense on that.
This is very similar to the right-wing H-1B debate earlier this year. Yes, it is. It's identical. So much of the immigration issues are just completely constructed hysteric narratives that are not born out of any sort of real vulnerability or any sort of real issue. It's simply just a made up problem. That's why I always ask people, like, have you ever met an undocumented migrant? Have you ever met a migrant that's like waiting to become documented? Have you ever been harmed by an undocumented migrant in any meaningful fashion? Do you know how many people around you are migrants? Documented and undocumented. It's a meme, but this TikTok basically perfectly demonstrates like the Christian hypocrisy of it as well. I can't believe I'm going to point to TikTok here, but hold on, let me see. I want to show this to you because I reposted it.
Lord, please deport the illegal immigrant dishwasher at my local Italian restaurant and separate him from his family so I can feel safe again.
Like, that's it. That's what you're advocating for. Your advocacy revolves around like forcibly removing a person that is not doing any harm, but unironically is a productive, sometimes more productive member of society than you, working pennies on the dollar. You want them to be removed because you've been duped into believing that like somehow they are responsible for all of the pressures that you experience. Some people genuinely are white supremacists. They genuinely do think that, having more Mexicans in America or having more brown people in America is like ruining the social fabric. F those people. There's a bunch of people, on the other hand, who do legitimately believe the lies, right? That's the reason why you saw so many Hispanic voters vote for Donald Trump, because they thought maybe there are some like criminal migrants out there and this guy is going to fucking deal with the criminal migrants, right? It's just scapegoating a vulnerable population that has no legal protections whatsoever for all of the actual systemic problems that exist in society. It is the fascist playbook. It is the exact same thing that the Nazis did. And of course, as we know how orbit works, now that Trump is coming out and saying, yeah, maybe we shouldn't actually, maybe we shouldn't actually deport all the migrant workers. That's really hurting the economy. Every single dumb that said, we voted for this, will then turn around and go, yeah, isn't my president so beautiful and so brave and so empathetic? See? I genuinely don't understand the physical machinations of racism within thinking others are lower than you. I understand it as a concept, yes, the whole 99% of it, just not the thinking. Maybe it's simply because I care another. No, first of all, I totally get it. You feel inferior. You feel like you're fucked over. You feel like you're not getting what you deserve. You have no control over your life. You go to work and you make money for a boss you'll never see. Your manager, working at the behest of your boss, tells you what you can and can't do. You spend 80% of your adult life in this structure. You despise everything that's going on. You have no free time. You have no disposable income. You have no savings, right? Everything is more and more expensive. You don't even have the opportunity to meet a girl and maybe get married, maybe have children, all of those things, or own a home. All those things that you thought you would get, you are no longer getting. You're angry all the time. But as long as there's someone that people in positions of power can point to say, this is the reason why you're angry, it's because undocumented migrants are bad, you can at least feel a little bit more self-assured, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit like, hey, you know, as long as there's someone beneath me, I'm doing all right. My primary responsibility, my primary goal is to explain to people, to those who will listen, to those who will exhibit charitability here, that it is not the undocumented migrant that's fucking you over. It's your bosses. It's your landlord. It's those with power in society, those who own capital. The marginal amount of capital that you own in the form of a 401k is only making you feel like you're invested in the stock market and the success and the continuation of super profits for mega corporations, when in fact, the system that we have designed with endless greed of capital owners in mind is the same system that refuses to give you the amenities that you deserve, the amenities that everyone deserves, the amenities that we could certainly leap for in this country. It's the wealthy on the planet. Think about all the endless bounty of technological advancement, and then think about in 2025, the fact that in the United States of America, you still don't have free healthcare. Every other country has free healthcare. Every other OECD nation has free healthcare. You don't. But as long as you think that undocumented migrants are the reason for this, or undocumented migrants are what you should pay attention to, rather, you will never fight for that. Because fighting for that is what unites everyone, regardless of their political allegiances. Fighting for things like that is the most terrifying prospect for capital owners, for those who actually seek to turn super profits out of privatizing healthcare, creating a structure of for-profit healthcare. It's just one issue, by the way. That's just one issue. There's so many other problems similar to this. Housing has the exact same issues. This is why I always say class consciousness is incredibly important and is unfortunately not so common here in the United States of America. Support for deporting all illegals, 2016, 38%, 2025, 56%. It's now the majority position. A result of the Democrats' shift to the right on migration, on immigration, 100%. It's that. It's also a lack of real solutions to the economic harms that people experience on a day-to-day basis. And then desperate people, angry people are vulnerable. Desperate and angry people are resentful. They are easily duped. And when one party uses that desperation and anger, born out of worsening material conditions, to reappropriate that anger and redirect that anger to vulnerable populations, and the other party does not say, hey, we got to put an end to this. We have to actually solve the real issues that people are experiencing. We have to expand the social safety nets. If the other party doesn't do that, and the other party doesn't even counter message against the Republicans, redirecting that anger and resentment towards vulnerable populations, this is what you're going to get. I don't want to hear from anybody that says, Hasan, who could have foreseen this? I did. So many people did. I've been saying this for a goddamn decade, dude.
First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a communist. ICE is Gestapo, a state-sponsored law enforcement division created to wreak havoc in our communities, separate families, and punish people, well, overwhelmingly people of color, for the crime of wanting to pursue the American dream.
When you commit a crime against this country, enter the country illegally, you should be worried.
ICE terrorizes your neighbors with its indiscriminate exercise of force and has less to do with violent criminal apprehension than ever before.
It's been a decade where I've been screaming this on the rooftops, and there were exit ramps on numerous occasions. Bernie Sanders was a great one, and the Democrats f***ed them over twice. They're beating you down to let them use your hard-earned taxes to take your neighbors and fund endless war. They want to divide you and then stuff their pockets while you're busy fighting each other, and if you dare to try to interrupt to see your neighbors as you, they'll go after you next. Here's another example of a selfish Trump voter who had his construction business raided in Florida and is asking Trump to legalize undocumented workers now.
So I really didn't want to do a video on this, but I've been asked by quite a few people what I thought about the immigration stuff happening at job sites all around the state of Florida, here in Tampa, Tallahassee. I've seen it everywhere. I've seen a lot of the videos, and it seems like a lot of people are just yelling and they're mad. I don't understand why this is happening. I don't understand it either. It's not what I voted for. I voted for the criminals to be removed, 100%. But
dog, what are you saying? You think there were 20 million criminals? Like 20 million, because that's the number Trump claims. That's what he wants to deport. He kept saying mass deportation.
there are a lot of hardworking immigrants in this country that are building this country. Going back to when I started building the Hard Rock, 85% probably immigrants, all hardworking people providing for their families. Talk to them, get to see their kids on their phones, hear them all interact, have great days, loving what they do. I've been to the trade schools here in Tampa. I don't see how we fill these positions. It's going to cause construction to collapse here. It worries me. I'm in a good position right now with the 2 custom homes I have coming up this year, but ultimately the shoes are not going to be filled by these people getting rushed out of here. So I'm not going to copy everybody else on this video here. I've got a solution. The solution, President Trump, is to not deport these gentlemen right away, these hardworking gentlemen and women that have been removed from these job sites. Get them legal status somehow, under a work visa, background check them, do whatever you need to do to make sure they're not criminals, but let's get them legalized in a rushed form or fashion.
Wow. I feel like I'm reacting to myself. That's crazy. What a quick turnaround, dude. Wow. Who would have foreseen this, dude? If only there was someone who was just constantly talking about how the solution to undocumented migration, which is not even a real problem to begin with, but the appropriate solution to this fake problem that the Republicans claim is a massive problem is to actually document these people. I also told you that the moment this comes to their neighborhood, they will very quickly realize that this was up. They will realize that it's up, for one, the humanity of it all, the inhumanity of it all, because these are dudes that he's friends with, people whose families he's met. And if he doesn't recognize the humanity of it or the inhumanity of the situation, he will certainly recognize the financial outcomes. For months, I told you that this was going to happen if Trump wins. I told you that the Democrats not positioning themselves as defenders of migrants was going to only cause people to believe that the Trump administration's agenda was true. I said it every single day.
That's because the Democratic Party is too scared. They refuse to actually have any sort of counter messaging on this front, and they just capitulate the right-wing framing every single time. They did this with the crime panic too. It's completely born out of hysteria. It's straight Hitlerian on the Republican side.
That's what needs to happen. That's the right thing to do if you care about America. It's the right thing to do because construction is the biggest industry. I'm sorry, healthcare. But we all know I won't go to health. I don't do that here. Construction is the biggest industry in this country. And you're ripping the people out of it. Robots are not coming soon enough to build this stuff. You can only build so many 3D printed homes, and they need people there to manage those too. So Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, the solution, not the problem. We all know what the problem
revolution.
is. The solution is to not deport them. Get them legalized as soon as possible with the proper background checks. If they have to go, they have to go. But these are hardworking people that are building this country.
This is the least appealing I told you so moment of all time, both on the basis of like Americans coming to this recognition, but also the dangers of not counter messaging that would cause so many dumbass Americans to lose sight of how devastating it is to dehumanize migrants this hard. Donald Trump is now underwater on every issue, including immigration. And this is the most popular he will ever be on the issue of immigration. Today is the most popular Donald Trump will ever be on immigration. Tomorrow, he is going to be less popular. New AP NORC poll, Trump has a 39% approval overall, minus 21, on immigration, minus 7, on the economy, minus 22, on trade, minus 22, on climate, minus 22. He's underwater. I'm not going to say the Democrats have actually positioned themselves against Trump's immigration agenda until now. And even then, they're too little and too late to the game. Day late, $1 short. But the popular discontent is the reason why his approval ratings are going down, because people are seeing how cruel this is.